Good day everyone, I am Francisca T. Bautista, together with my co-reporter Ms. Jessamay Dagama. Today we are going to discuss Piaget concept during operational stage. But before we are going to our topic, allow me to read first our objectives. At the end of the lesson, student can identify Piaget concept during operational stage, understand the teaching implication of Piaget's theory and Levi-Vygotsky theory on language and zone of proximal development, and create a reflection about the theory of Piaget and Levi-Vygotsky on language and zone of proximal development. Piaget concept during operational stage. The concrete operational stage is the third stage in Piaget's theory of cognitive development. This period lasts around 7 to 11 years of age and is characterized by the development of organized and rational thinking. Piaget concept during concrete operational stage. First, we have seriation is the ability to sort object or situation according to any characteristics such as size, color, shape, or type. Some example of seriation exercise would be children putting objects in order or arrange objects from smallest to largest, largest to smallest, shortest to tallest, or thinnest to thickest, and so forth. This is very important concept to master for children to learn in school, especially in math. In a simple way or simple term, it is formation, arrangement, succession, or position in a series or orderly sequence. Next, we have conservation. Conservation is the ability to understand that distributing material does not affect its mass, numbers, volume, or length. Piaget's famous example of conservation was performed using liquid poured into different shaped containers. Though the volume of liquid remains the same across the two containers, each container has a very different visual appearance, with one being tall and thin, while another was short and wide. Based on this observation, Piaget concluded that children were able to appreciate that the total amount of liquid was unchanged despite being poured into different shaped containers. Next, we have decentering, also known as decentration. It refers to the ability to consider multiple aspects of a situation. For example, when a child is asked to choose between two lollipops, a child might choose based on flavor, color, and size of the lollipop, before choosing the biggest or reddest, cherry-flavored lollipop available. Decentration is a good at times because it allows multiple pieces of information to be considered at once. Next, we have transitivity. Transitivity is the ability to recognize relationship among various things in a serial order. For example, when a child is told to put away his books according to height, the child recognizes that he starts with placing the tallest one on one end of the bookshelf, and the shortest one ends up at the other end. Next, we have reversibility. Reversibility is the ability to recognize that numbers or objects can be changed and returned to their original condition, or an awareness that actions can be reserved. An example of this is being able to reverse the order of relationships between mental categories. Next, we have formal operational, 11 years and over. The formal operational stage begins at approximately age 11 and lasts into adulthood. During this time, people develop the ability to think about abstract concepts and logically test hypotheses. Adolescents who reach this fourth stage of intellectual development, usually at age 11 plus, are able to use symbols related to abstract concepts such as algebra and science. They can think about things in the systematic ways, come up with theories, and consider possibilities. They also can ponder abstract relationship and concepts such as justice. Although Piaget believed in lifelong intellectual growth, he insisted that the formal operational stage is the final stage of cognitive development. He also said that continued intellectual development in adult depends on the build-up of knowledge. Piaget's 1963 theories broke new ground because he found that children's brains work in very different ways than adults. Before his theory, many believed that children were not yet capable of thinking as well as grown-ups. Some experts disagree with his idea of stages. Instead, they see development and continuous. Another criticism is that Piaget didn't consider how a child culture and social environment affect their development. Piaget acknowledged that some children may pass through the stage at different ages than the average noted before. He also said some children may show characteristics of more than one stage at a given time. Piaget insisted that cognitive development always followed a sequence. So we have our sequence here. Stages cannot be skipped. Each stages is marked by new intellectual abilities and a more complex understanding of the world. So first, we have children need physical hands and practice with facts and skills needed for development. Second, use cut-out letters to build words. Third, avoid lessons that are very different from the child's world, Roger. Then steer away from using workbooks or paper and pencil activities very often. We need to follow this sequence in order for us to have a cognitive development. Piaget emphasized the importance of hypothetico-deductive reasoning during the formal operational stage. So when we say hypothetico-deductive reasoning is the ability to think scientifically through generating predictions or hypotheses about the world to answer questions. The individual will approach problems in a systematic and organized manner rather than through trial and error. This type of thinkings involve hypothetical what-if situations that are not always rooted in a reality. What if? Counterfactual thinking. In a simple word, imagining ways in which events in one's life might have turned out differently. This often involves feelings of regrets or disappointment, but may also involve a sense of relief as at a narrow escape. So here, abstract thoughts emerge during the formal operational stage. Children tend to think very concretely and specifically in early stages and begin to consider possible outcomes and consequences of actions. It's children tends to know that consequences of their actions. Metacognition, the capacity for thinking about thinking that allows adolescents and adults to reason about their thoughts, processes, and monitor them. They can defend or stand their own thoughts or learning to a certain idea that they have. Also, it involves self-regulations and self-reflections of strengths, weaknesses, and the types of strategies you create. We have problem solving. Problem solving is demonstrated when children use trial and error to solve problems. The ability to systematically solve a problem in a logical and methodological way emerge. They will try things and evaluate if it is solution or not. We have here characteristic and developmental changes. At this stage, the adolescent or young adult begins to think abstractly and reason about hypothetical problems. Abstract thought emerge. Teens begin to think more about moral, philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. Begin to use deductive logic or reasoning from a general principle to specific information. So during this stage, if there is a problem, a person begin to think abstractly considering other aspects that could affect a certain problem or issues. Here are some examples that we can apply in classroom situation. First, give children an opportunity to manipulate objects and test out ideas. Second, do simple requirements having limited numbers of steps with 3 or less variables at a time. Third, reading selection should have a limited number of characters. Fourth, students should have practice classifying objects and ideas on complex levels. Fifth, use analogies to show the relationship of new materials to already acquired knowledge. Those are the basic example of how we can handle the situation in our classroom. In 21st century, classroom learning is learner-centered and accomplished through active discovery learning, which is the role of the teacher is to guide and facilitate learning. In 21st century, learners are eager to learn more and discover more in order or for the sake of learning. That's why it is timely that the 21st century learning is a centered learner. Number 1. Focus on the process of children's thinking, not just its products. Instead of simply checking for a correct answer, teachers should emphasize the students' understanding and process they use to get the answer. At this stage, teachers should know the reason behind the student answer or response to a certain question and how would they come up to an answer. In number 2, recognition of the crucial role of children's self-initiated, active involvement in learning activities. Children should take an active role in the learning process, such as acting much like little scientists as they perform experiments, make observations, inquire, reflecting, discussing, and learn about the world. As they interact with the world around them, they continually add new knowledge, build upon existing knowledge, and adopt previously held ideas to accommodate new information. It is involvement of a children to certain actively that would help them to learn new things. Learners at this stage are activating their willingness to learn and initiate to open up with others to gain new knowledge.
We have the number 3, acceptance of individual differences in developmental progress. Piaget's theory asserts that children go through all the same and developmental stages, however, they do so at different rates. So, acceptance of individual differences in developmental progress. Piaget's theory assumes that all children go through the same developmental sequence, but that they do so at different rates. Therefore, teacher must make a special effort to arrange classroom activities for individuals and small groups of children rather than for the total class group. So, in addition, because individual differences are expected, assessment of children's educational progress should be made in terms of each child's own previous course of development, not in terms of normative standards provided by the performances of same-age peers. So number 4, provision for collaborative as well as individual activities so children can learn from each other. So the teacher must provide collaborative activities in which the students can be able to share their thoughts or ideas. They can be able to brainstorm and exchange ideas with other peers. So, and to balance the learning, the teacher must provide also individual tasks which the student can be able to learn on their own. And for the last one, as a teacher, to assess your learners, you must encourage them to discuss, reflect, analyze, understand, and create things. So through this, we are able to identify our learners, their abilities, and their needs when it comes to their learning so that we can identify and make a new strategy so that the learning process will continue. So, Live Vygotsky theory of language development focus on social learning and the zone of proximal development (CPD). The CPD is a level of development obtained when children engage in social interactions with others. So, it is the distance between the child's potential to learn and the actual learning that takes place. The distance between the actual development level is determined by independent problem solving, and the level of potential development is determined through problem solving under adult guidance or in collaboration with more capable peers. So the child's CPD is not static, although the zone or region of sensitivity to learning is defined initially by the child's existing knowledge or competence. In an area of intellectual growth, with proper support for learning, the child's level of competence in this area changes, and the child's CPD changes accordingly. So within the zone of proximal development, there are two levels. First, we have the upper limit, which defines the level of additional responsibility the child can accept with assistance of an able instructor or can perform with the assistance of a more competent individual. So next, we have the lower limit, which is the level of problem solving reached on different tasks by the child working alone or one can perform independently. So essential factors that are critical to the success of the learning process. First, more knowledgeable other. Second, scaffolding or supportive activities. And third, social interactions. The more knowledgeable other is someone who has a higher level of knowledge than the learner. It is the more knowledgeable other who provides critical guidance and instruction during the sensitive learning period. So while a child might not yet be capable of doing something on their own, they are able to perform the task with the assistance of a skilled instructor, which may include a parent, a teacher, another adult, or a peer. Example of CPD in the classroom is a teacher in an experimental psychology course might initially provide scaffolding for students by coaching them step by step through their experiment. Next, the teacher might slowly remove the scaffolding by only providing outlines or brief descriptions of how to proceed. Finally, students would be expected to develop and carry out their experiments independently. So, to help learners achieve independence, Vygotsky outlines scaffolding as a tool for growth. So, learners complete small, manageable steps in order to reach the goal. Working in collaboration with a skilled instructor or more knowledgeable peers helps students make connections between concepts. And as a learner, grow within their zone proximal development and become more confident. They practice new tasks with the social support that surrounds them. So Vygotsky maintains that special learning occurs through purposeful, meaningful interactions with others. Social interaction. This more knowledgeable other is often a parent, teacher, or another adult, but this is not always the case. In many instances, peers provide valuable assistance and instruction. Vygotsky believed that peer interaction was an essential part of the learning process. So, for learning to take place, Vygotsky believed that social interaction between a more knowledgeable other and the learner was critical. While the expert may be an adult, Vygotsky also emphasized the power of peer learning. So, for instance, when kids are learning a new concept, social interaction between the adult expert at all the children is initially crucial. But if some children grasp the concept while others are still in this CPD, peer interaction may create the most conductive environmental learning. Vygotsky's overall teaching recommendations: first, assess child's zone of proximal development, provide just enough assistance, use more skilled peers as teachers, encourage private speech, self-regulation, cognitive and language development. In Figure 2 language, Vygotsky's cognitive and development theory, we have socialized speech. Next is private speech. Third is communicative speech. And the last is inner speech.